It's time for the 1430 Connection on 1430 WNAV and 99.9 FM, spotlighting news, newsmakers, and important community issues. Now, with this week's edition of the 1430 Connection, here is WNAV news anchor Donna Cole.
Welcome to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me once again, I welcome back Rick Anthony. He's the director of Anne Arundel County's Recreation and Parks Department. Rick, thank you for joining me.
No problem. How are you?
I am wonderful. And you?
I am doing okay.
And the reason why Rick is just okay is because his boss was not reelected. That would be Steve Shue.
That's correct.
And for those that are not familiar with the way politics works and governments work, sometimes you are tied to your boss, sometimes you are not. You are in an unknown territory right now.
Yes, that's correct.
So you do not know if you will be continuing as the director of Recreation and Parks?
As of right now, today, no.
Okay. You have been at the position for how long?
8 years now.
Yeah, it's a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. I've survived a few of these already, so.
Does everybody want to call it Parks and Recreation because of the TV show?
Always. They ruined it for us. So I was thinking about, should we just change our name? It would make it a lot easier for other people, but yeah, I get it.
All right, so Anne Arundel County Recreation and Parks Department oversees all the recreational programs and the parks in the county. You've had quite a few parks added under County Executive Shue.
That's correct. We've acquired quite a few properties under his term, and also developed a few of the parks that weren't developed.
This has been a huge growth period for the.
It has, yeah, and especially in light of where we came from, really just struggling to make ends meet. The county executive showed a tremendous amount of support to our department, and in particular to just supporting us with our resources, with funding, employees, and obviously all the new initiatives that we're embarking on now.
Now, some of the concerns going back quite a few years, the Mayo Peninsula.
Yes.
You've heard them. The county executive's department his staff has heard them. He's heard them.
Yes.
Changes were made. Were enough changes made? Is everybody happy now that you know of? Well, everybody. Okay.
Yeah, Donna, I don't think you're never going to get in a point where everybody is happy. Certainly, I can attest that we've made many modifications, especially, again, when you think about the original master plans on some of those parks and why those parks were purchased in the first place. So I feel like we've made quite a bit of changes, and I think we've been very attentive to responding to their needs, everything from the traffic concerns to the parking. We decided to phase in some of the development so that we can get a true measure of what we're going to be dealing with out there. So I think there's a good balance that we achieved.
There is currently some, you might have heard about it, some consternation surrounding the Turtle Run property.
Yes.
Will that be going forward as far as you know?
Yeah, I have. Well, the county owns it.
Okay.
So it is in my inventory right now, as the plans are currently spelled out to me, is that it is going to be a connection to Franklin Point. Mm-hmm. I'm still in the process of acquiring Franklin Point from the state. There was a Board of Public Works action years ago, but the state is asking for some additional information regarding our future plans there. It doesn't look like that it can happen quite easily. We just have to go through that process. So.
And for those that aren't familiar with where these two places are, where are they?
South County, all the way into the end of South County in the Shady Side. Franklin Point is in the Shady Side area, and I guess Turtle Run is contiguous to that.
And they are humongous pieces of property.
They are very beautiful, pristine pieces of property. Our intent is always to preserve them as a natural area, providing passive recreation opportunities, natural trails, car top launches, some bird watching towers. Those sorts of things are what we envision for that site.
Did you say bird watching just because you know I'm into bird watching?
I did not, but I remember now you frequent Jug Bay.
Yes, and we're going to get into that conversation next because you love this conversation also. All right, so one of the reasons why I contacted you initially was in recent history there was an article in the Capitol written by Rick Utzel, who is the editor of the Capitol, about some issues with, maybe not issues, but, you can tell me what's going on. The bike trails that are at
Bacon Ridge.
Bacon Ridge,
Yes.
which is in Crownsville.
Yes.
Bike trails that apparently have been lovingly developed by Michael Klasmeyer.
That's correct.
Who's headed this up, who's done bike trails in lots of other jurisdictions. He is the bike trail guy. And he felt a little slighted. I think he contacted me because of the article. He's like, I want to come in and talk to you and with Rick, but he couldn't be here today, and I'm sorry he couldn't be here today, and hopefully we'll get him in. Where are we at with this?
Well, right now, the county is evaluating the recent proposal, or actually the recent trail that they started on. They were kind of under some very specific guidelines, mainly because the archaeological study had not been complete. And then when I guess after a few weeks of work, it was discovered that they did a little more than what we had approved for them to do, went into some areas that we did not give approval. It's really a very complicated, I know our department, number one, really supports the trails. And matter of fact, if it wasn't for the county executive, we wouldn't have made this much progress, but he's really been pushing us, and we really appreciate the efforts for our volunteers. Unfortunately, I just have so many other stakeholders to answer to in that property, including the neighboring communities there.
Scenic Rivers Land Trust.
Scenic Rivers Land Trust, Maryland Environmental Trust, they both hold easements to that property, and they've been very vocal about some of their objections to how we've been allowing the volunteer group to come in and do the trails.
Is it possible he didn't have enough information to begin with, so he was not necessarily, he can't be faulted entirely on that? I'm trying to find some common ground.
I think there's a little bit of a difference of opinion. And I think Michael has basically taken the county's silence to mean he can go ahead and do some of the things, but the fact of the matter is we have to work out a lot of issues out there. And I know he mentioned about the proposal he gave us years ago. We never approved that a proposal. My mindset, and I told him directly, that I always have concerns because there is literally no parking there, and we haven't resolved the Crownsville Hospital site.
Right.
And in the interim, the county has looked at other ways to access the property, and we really think that we may have a willing landowner now that may give us access without going through Farm Road of the hospital. But all those things just take time, and I think that's the real issue.
So it's not that you're not ignoring him. And you want to continue working with him.
Absolutely.
Yes? Okay.
Yes. Well, again, we don't know what's going to happen with the new administration.
Right.
The issues right now I have to deal with is Jane. I have two department heads that are upset about the work that they've done.
Your archaeologist, who is
Jane Cox.
Okay.
And she's under planning and zoning. And so I had a conversation with Phil about some of the things that we need to do according to the easement. Also, IMP are a little bit upset about some of the bridges that he built. They have given kind of a thumbs up to say they thought that we could cross some of these wetland areas, but in no way, shape, or form did we ever give approval to design the elaborate bridges that he built there. And now their concern is that these bridges have not been inspected. They haven't been permitted by MDE. So they're evaluating the bridges now. And these bridges are actually in areas that were not a part of the approved phase. And that gives us a lot of concern that they went outside of the approved scope. Each little phase has to go through an approval process from our easement holders, and these bridges were not approved at all.
Okay, we're going to take a short break. More when we come back with Rick Anthony, Director of Anne Arundel County's Recreation and Parks Department. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me today is Rick Anthony, Director of Anne Arundel County Recreation and Parks. We're talking rec and parks. Here's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. And maybe you've seen, are you a dad?
Yes, I am.
How old are your kids?
They're adult. All the adult children. I have three men and one daughter.
Okay, so were they athletes? Were they involved in recreation?
Absolutely.
Okay,
yep,
so you know that as time has gone by, we've gone away from this kind of let's play multiple sports during the school year to specializing in one sport.
Yes.
And with this, I have seen, but I don't know if it's in fact true, what seems like the rec leagues are suffering at the older kid level because these kids are being in some cases, almost forced, directed into traveling teams. You've seen this.
Yes, it is a big problem for our department, and mainly because our mission is to really try to serve as many youth as we can on the recreation level, to not take the fun out of the sports, and it's really become more of an ultra competitive in any sport. A lot of these leagues are driven by club programs, and we try to accommodate and recruiting, and unfortunately, it's what the parents want, and in many cases, what the kids want, and I think they all have, visions of winning scholarships and competing at a higher level. Unfortunately, we just don't have the infrastructure to accommodate all of the club activities and keep the rec leagues intact. We work with each organization, but it has been a big challenge for our department.
And unfortunately, who really is at a loss with this, who gets hurt with this, are the kids that are the mediocre, they're not the best athletes, or the kids whose parents don't have the money to send them on these traveling. Yeah. And it breaks my heart.
Yes. We've tried to address it with each individual accredited organization that we have. We've made it clear that our intention is to make rec leagues the priority, but they also are under pressure within their own organization to get involved. And now even the club level now, where it used to be, it was just the ultra competitive kids that were at the top level. Now they've watered it down where there's B and C level.
Because of money.
Because of money. A lot of it is driven by money. And it is unfortunate that it's a pay-to-play sort of environment out there, and there are a lot of organizations that struggle to keep up with that.
Is this something not just your department, but recreation departments are looking at? The state. I mean, I know the genie's out of the bottle, and I know we can't put the genie back in the bottle, but we've got to look out for these kids.
It's a national trend. I've attended both NRPA and MRPA, and this has been a topic of discussion quite a bit. And I actually have a senior staff. Each jurisdiction is kind of different and unique, and so they handle it in a different way. And I believe an example is like Howard County. They don't have any really oversight over these, but they will allow some of their club teams just to rent the facilities directly from them for a pretty significant cost. Our motto is that we try to share as much as we can, but only if the rec organization is kind of supportive of, what are their club activities.
Does it concern you going forward, where we're at today, where we were 5 years ago, 10?
Yeah, absolutely. And mainly I just feel for the wealth or the welfare of the athletes. What I believe, and I believe I saw a study that they're showing that it used to be where the kids would go from one sport to a different sport, and they weren't as passionate. It wasn't as competitive. If someone was playing basketball, and maybe in the spring they would play baseball just for fun, and you saw that these children were developing more of a well-rounded physical abilities.
Cross-training, better for the body.
Exactly right. But now you're seeing a lot of young athletes actually incurring pretty dramatic injuries because they're playing the same sport year-round, lacrosse, fall, winter, spring, and it really wears on the body and the same joints and the same ligaments. So that's one big concern that we have about this. But again, it's impossible to try to. How do you turn that other than obviously educating the public? So the
orthopedic surgeons are doing well, the clubs are doing well, the traveling teams are doing well, and then these road shows where you do travel from location to location, you have vendor villages. Yes. I mean, it's this whole business that's sprung up around it.
And we are, as a department, we are tasked to serve the needs, so I'm not being anti-tournament. It is something that we've done better than previous years. It's one of the reasons why we have so many turf fields, so we can accommodate tournaments. So we're all for it, but our challenge is always trying to have that balance to where one tournament and club and elite play is not just dominating the atmosphere, and other opportunities for fun and recreation are presented by our department.
All right, we're going to take another short break. When we come back, more about Anne Arundel County Recreation and Parks. welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole, and in the studio with me is Rick Anthony. He's the director of Anne Arundel County Recreation and Parks for now. His county executive, Steve Shue, was just not reelected to a second term, so we'll see what happens with Rick's position. So you did bring up Jug Bay. I did not bring it up, but you do know what happened to me about a year ago. I was sprayed with, for those that don't know, Aquaneat is what it's called, or known better to some as glyphosate, known better as to some as RoundUp. Glyphosate has been in the news a lot in recent history. The EU continues to try to ban it. California is against it. It may or may not cause cancer. Bayer, who is currently the owner of the company that makes it, will tell you one thing. The EPA will tell you one thing. Everybody has their own thoughts. I know you're not spraying, aerial spraying anymore.
No, we discontinued the helicopter spraying.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I do again apologize for that. I know that the company took full responsibility, but even though that is very unfortunate that happened for you. We are doing backpack spraying, and mainly just to address the Phragmites problem that we have, and that was obviously one of the priorities of this administration was to try to continue to beautify and protect the natural environment from invasive species.
Okay, so Phragmites is an invasive species. You find it throughout Maryland. You find it everywhere. Everybody's trying to figure out how to eradicate it. I'm going to read something that Catherine Phillips, who is the program manager, was for the Maryland Coastal Bays program, wrote in Delmarva Now, which is part of USA Today, back in February 2017. Phragmites is an aggressive grass species that targets disturbed wetlands that have been altered by natural or anthropogenic causes. Numerous efforts have been taken to rid our wetlands of this plant. However, none have been effective. The most common forms of removal and control are herbicides, mowing, draining, burning, and grazing. Consistent treatment is more effective than single applications. Anne Arundel County is not unique in using glyphosate. I'm not making Anne Arundel County out to be, the enemy here. Everybody is dealing with this. However, as Phillips goes on to mention, Phragmites might have a hidden benefit for wetlands. It absorbs 3 times more carbon than native plants, she wrote. The excess of nitrogen in our waterways allows the invasive subspecies to grow for a longer period of time and create more chlorophyll, the green pigment necessary for plants to photosynthesize. This will help, and I'm going on in the paragraph, this will help protect wetlands from sea level rise and erosion. Sea level rise and erosion is one of the biggest concerns with waterfront areas. Yeah. So here we are now, after trying to kill Phragmites and trying to kill it again and trying to kill it again. It keeps growing back. You know that. Yeah. We keep spending more money. We keep putting this may or may not be toxic herbicide out in the environment. And Phragmites actually might be beneficial.
Yeah, and it's funny. I actually had a conversation with Sally Horner. She was at Anne Arundel Community College.
Okay, yes.
Okay. And we had a really long conversation about that, and I actually brought it up to this current administration. And so we are, looking at, and obviously with the new administration, they're going to have their own priorities and initiatives. But our department is, now that we've been doing this for 3 years, we are seeing some improvement, but recognizing that this is a long-term project, and if we need to potentially switch gears and focus on how we can control it more than just try to eradicate it. Again, it's going to be up to the new administration. I can't comment on where we're going to land, but certainly we have been in discussions with a lot of the folks that have spent a lot of time doing the research and getting the details about it.
I mean, I just, as a mom, as a dog owner, as a breast cancer survivor, as how much of this stuff do we want to keep spraying, especially in an area that is so fragile because it's wetlands?
Yeah, I understand.
Okay. So I don't have to keep pounding this point out.
Not at all.
All right, Rick, what am I missing? What do you want to convey?
I would have to say that, number one, I have a fantastic staff. They have been doing an outstanding job in every area of our department, and hopefully the community have seen the difference, especially when it comes to program. We had a huge festival, the wine festival,
right.
Twist and Stout.
How'd that go? Yeah.
It went very well. Over, I want to say 1,500 people that were there, and we targeted for more, but for first time doing it the first year at Quiet Waters. So it was a great success. And we've been doing things like that to elevate kind of our profile in the community, to show that we just don't roll out basketballs and fix barbecue grills, that we do a lot more. And so we're excited about the direction that we've taken. We're very close to being an accredited organization with CAPRA. We've been working on this for 3 years, and we are hoping to have a visitation by the end of next year, 19, and we will be probably one of the 4, I believe, in the entire state that will be accredited. So there's a lot of things that we're doing that I think is going to serve our citizens very well in the future, whether I'm here or not.
I know one more question
Sure.
I had for you. More adaptive playgrounds, and I know we already have adaptive playgrounds, but more of them.
Yes. And again, that's part of the focus for even the accreditation, that we are meeting the adaptive needs. Right now, we have a project on the books for Brooklyn Park. And we're hoping to we're going to partner with Cal Ripken Foundation, and that mission is very close to them too. And I believe that we're planning to put in another adaptive playground in the north part of the county.
Great.
Yeah. So those are the immediate plans to do that.
Rick, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you always, Donna.
This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We will see you next week.